Paint Care is all about keeping it simple for district residents. They make recycling leftover paint easy with convenient locations like your local paint store. Paint Care has 3 simple rules for painting smarter and reducing waste. 1, buy the right amount of paint for the job. 2, use up what's left. And 3, recycle the rest. To learn more or find a paint drop site near you, visit paintcare.org/3simplerules. That's paintcare.org/3simplerules.
I distinctly remember the first time I ate at a DC Streatery. It was during the pandemic. For my birthday, my family and I ate brunch at Le Diplomat's heated outdoor patio area. And even though it was cold out, the experience nearly brought me to tears. Happy tears. It was the first time I'd been out for a meal during the entire pandemic, and I'd forgotten how much joy it brings me to share a meal with people I love at a place that isn't my own kitchen. That seemed to be a winning formula for a lot of restaurants around the city. Soon, outdoor setups were cropping up on busy roadways, they were blocked off by jersey barriers, and they had servers wheeling and dealing food to patrons outdoors. Streateries quickly became a mainstay, even as the pandemic wound down. And now there's a chance they might be here forever. Streateries aren't without their enemies, though. A lot of drivers hate them. So I've been wanting to investigate why they've stuck around so long. What do Streateries tell us about our city? Who are they for? Who decides how to use that land? And what does it take to make a niche temporary solution into something permanent? Today is Wednesday, April 9th. I'm senior producer Julia Karron, and here's what DC is talking about. Spring is finally here, which means patio season and being outdoors is fully a go for everyone in the district. That means Streateries are going to start being packed. And next time you're at one, think about how it looks compared to the flimsy ones we started out with, because it's wild to reflect on. Washingtonian food writer Ike Allen told me about how quickly and desperately restaurants threw these up at the time.
At the beginning, they were this stopgap, this kind of temporary ad hoc measure that, helped a lot of businesses in a lot of cities, helped a lot of diners feel like they could safely go out to eat.
And city planners backed this up too. Kristen Barden, the head of the Adams Morgan Business Improvement District, noted that most restaurants got creative about how they adhered to the Wild West of Streatery rules. If you could fit within the allotted square footage, it was pretty much fair game.
During the pandemic, when this program was first started, I think it launched in June 2020, our businesses, they each kind of did their own thing, right? And they each, either built something or they put up a tent, and didn't build a platform. So there was, a little bit of everything, right? Some of it looked better than others, right? But what we discovered was that there were some sightline problems. There were some that were too tall, that were blocking people's ability to both be a pedestrian, a bicyclist, or a driver. And also that some were built right up against the curb, which was creating some drainage issues. And there was some pooling of water. And also, when water doesn't flow well, then trash and other, debris accumulate.
Despite their flaws, Streateries took off in DC. And now, even when they're not quite as necessary, they're a staple in many parts of the city. In fact, DC's Department of Transportation has a set definition of it. They say, Streateries are designated areas in a roadway or alley used specifically for outdoor dining. Streateries repurpose, activate, and expand public space to create space for people and patrons of food establishments. Streateries are not sidewalk cafes and are not located on private property, i.e., summer gardens. Okay, so the goal is to repurpose public space in the roadways. Sweet. How do they do this? Well, Kristen Barden explains that Adams Morgan is trying to find out for all of us.
There was a need to kind of better manage the public space, right? And so, in talking to DDOT, we got them to agree to use Adams Morgan as a pilot program and to spend, I think the budget was $750,000 to work with the businesses within just a 2-block area. So, unfortunately, because the money was limited, we weren't able to work with all of the businesses in the whole neighborhood. It was limited to 18th Street between Calorama and Columbia Road.
That new program came with a bunch of rules. Ike Allen again.
They're no longer allowed in any kind of travel lane of the road. They're only allowed in basically parking lanes. They can't have, you won't see any more of these kind of high-walled sort of cabin-looking things that almost look like an indoor space. That won't be permitted anymore. There's some accessibility info in the guidelines so that rather than having just a ramp down to the street from the sidewalk to get in, they'll need to be completely flush with the sidewalk. So these things are already true for a lot of the streeteries, but any streeteries that don't meet that those guidelines will have to change that next year. That's actually not going to be enforced probably until next summer, July 2025. But once they are, that's kind of the outcome probably.
Also, why Adams Morgan of all places? Why not somewhere else in the city?
I think it's the density of restaurants. So, in that 2-block corridor, we have, probably 45 restaurants. So I think they saw this as an opportunity to really demonstrate how a holistic plan could look in an ideal situation.
So the TLDR for folks who need to catch up. The DC Department of Transportation is partnering with the Adams Morgan Business Improvement District with $750,000 at their disposal to see if Streateries work in Adams Morgan, and if they could therefore potentially work elsewhere. Only restaurants can have these, and they can only take up the street parking areas, not sidewalks, and have to meet accessibility standards. There will be actual enforcement of this too, according to Ike.
They'll send inspectors around. I think they probably will be limited by that, the way a lot of city agencies are, but they're saying that they're going to start enforcement next summer and that businesses will have to meet the regulations by then.
But there were other limiting factors too. On January 1st, Mayor Muriel Bowser paused the implementation of the permanent streetery regulations for the whole city. Kristen Barden explains.
The DDOT Public Space Committee had a hearing in early November, and I testified at that hearing. And the Public Space Committee approved those permanent regulations for the city. So those permanent regulations were supposed to be rolled out starting January 1st. And the mayor paused the rollout of the permanent regulations at the end of December. So all of the people who have streetery permits, whether it's a block-wide permit like ours in Adams Morgan, or you have an individual business streetery permit, all of those right now are set to expire in July. And the permanent regulations are paused by the mayor. So they were approved and ready to get rolled out, but have been paused.
So, DC Streetery project is paused indefinitely. No one can get permits from DDOT related to streeteries citywide. So, no electrical permits, no modification permits. Any permit you want, you can't get it. But like Kristen said, that doesn't mean streeters are going away. So, who's for this and who's against it? More on that after the break.
Ever wondered why mosquitoes bite you? Or maybe you're curious about policy, like solving the housing shortage or bridging the digital divide. Or maybe you want to hear it all. After the Fact, a podcast by Pew, breaks down today's big issues with expert insights and real stories. Whether you're into the research or the personal stories behind it, we've got you covered. Get the stories behind the stats. Listen to After the Fact wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a CityCast superfan, you have definitely heard us singing the praises of our longtime supporter, Paulson & Nace. Big news! Paulson & Nace is now Nace Law Group. Same great team, just with a new name. When you are hurt by the negligence of others, you want a lawyer that will actually fight for you, not one that will settle for the bare minimum. Nace's compassionate lawyers fight to bring cases to juries so you can get everything you deserve. If you've been hurt or lost a loved one because of someone else's mistake or negligence, call Nace Law Group for a no-obligation consultation. Visit www.washingtondcinjurylawyers.com or call 202-463-1999.
So streeteries, in theory, seem like a good idea. People want to be outside and eat their food. The DC government seems incentivized to help if it can. Things are looking up despite the pause. But not everyone is on board with this trend.
My name is Nick Deladon, and I'm the spokesman for DC Safe Streets Coalition.
This coalition was founded to originally work against bike lanes in the city, stating they got rid of parking and actually weren't safe for bikers on major thoroughfares. So why care about Streateries then?
We generally oppose them. They are part of the bike network. In fact, they're part of what's called a road diet. The road diet is an old terminology, but it's being misused here in DC to take up street space in order to control speeding cars and trucks and vehicles. And it is not really a good device for controlling speeding. Even DDOT says that cameras are a better way to control speeding in cars.
Okay, so not to go all conspiracy theory, but Streateries are also a big part of controlling how many cars are on the road. That feels like a big stretch, but it isn't, according to Nick.
They take up space in the street, so they're part of the narrowing of the street and the removal of traffic lanes. COVID is over, we don't need it anymore, and we need to get, when we reached out our hand for a helping hand to give to the restaurants, we expected to get our hand back. That the restaurants have a right to the space in the street. They don't have a right to the space in the street. The streets were made for a purpose, and it wasn't for dining. There are plenty of places where you can go and eat. You don't have to eat in the street. Eat safely in the street, you need some protection. And so they put concrete walls up. So that's an indication that it is not safe and that it is not appropriate.
So they don't look good, they slow traffic, and generally streets weren't made for this sort of thing. Streets are made for moving vehicles, and certain lanes are made for parking. Also, who wants to inhale the gas from cars anyways? That seems like a real detraction. But since they were meant for businesses as a lifeline, how do they feel about them?
I'm Carrie Bradley. I own the D-Light Cafe.
D-Light is right along that 18th Street corridor in Adams Morgan, and they're part of the pilot project. Carrie told me what her experience has been like with the Streateries and what it's done for her business.
I'm kind of neutral on it. I know it takes away from parking, which we very much need in Adams Morgan, but it's also a good space for us since we have a small dining area. It gives us a lot of overflow for the summer and spring and fall. When it's nice out, I mean, we're a tiny cafe, but we fill it up. Maybe we get between like 12 and 20 people out there.
And how many does your actual space seat?
So our full capacity is 46, but we can only honestly fit enough for like maybe 25 to be comfortable in here.
So that's like basically double your
Yeah.
capacity.
Yeah.
So that's a real difference in terms of...
It is.
Double the service. That means maybe double the money in the nice months. And in an industry that's got notoriously thin margins, that makes a huge difference. But Carrie was clear that she understands why people actively dislike the Streateries that could help her business a ton.
For them, it's the parking. And it's less about their less dine-in. They're more of like the clubs, the bars, where they don't need the space. They just want the parking. Because for them, people aren't going to come to the area if there's no place to park. They'll go somewhere else, like where they can park, right? They'll frequent other nightlife. For us, it's about the seating. People want places to sit when they come for brunch.
All right, so we know Streateries are contentious at best for business owners and those who want parking and safer streets. But what about you all, the listeners? We had a call out in our newsletter, Hey DC, and most of you said you loved them and were waiting for them to return in the spring. As it turns out, eating outdoors, albeit with cars whizzing by, is something folks are willing to brave. But there's one place where it's highly contentious. Connecticut Avenue isn't part of the pilot program, but one restaurant has been staking a claim that Streateries are in, much to the chagrin of their neighbors. Ike Allen explains what's going down between I'm Eddie Cano and Rosemary Bistro.
The owner of Americano and also a business called Italian Bar, they're each on the opposite side of Rosemary. The owner of Rosemary has kept his streetery up. It's permitted. It actually will have to change or be removed according to the current new guidelines. But so far it's been permitted and perfectly legal, but it blocks the view for drivers heading south on Connecticut Avenue of one of the other businesses, Italian Bar. And as a result, the owners of that, of Americano and Italian Bar have created a petition with a few hundred signatures requesting that it be taken down. Unclear exactly what that would do, how a petition would accomplish that, since it is a permitted structure. And the owner of Rosemary Bistro has created a competing petition. So they're both using the power of their diners to try and get a little bit of extra voice here. In reality, I think the Rosemary Bistro Streatery is it's in a rush hour travel lane, which is only allows parking part of the time, which means that it actually will be required to be taken down according to the new guidelines. those guidelines are not finalized yet, but if the guidelines are finalized as they are now, that structure will have to be taken down, actually.
Again, to be clear, this is not part of the Adams Morgan pilot program. But it does beg the question, who is the street for? And what should restaurants do if they want even more alfresco dining? I don't have all the answers to this, but I do think there is something to using your dollars for the things that you want. If it is really all about the economy and money, then that money is your power. If you want to eat outside at a streetery, use your money for it. We talk a lot on the show about community and how public services are used to help that community. To me, maybe Rosemary Bistro and I'm Eddie Cano can come to some sort of agreement about outdoor dining. Maybe they both get a streetery. Maybe they both only have patios. Maybe neither of them get what they want and only have indoor dining. But if Rosemary Bistro is really making money off of their streetery, then it's clear that people want it. There's a saying from one of my favorite movies, Field of Dreams, and it's, if you build it, they will come. It's clear for now that since streeteries have been built, people will come and enjoy them. So, when you're eating at a streetery this spring, or summer if you can brave the summer months, take a minute to reflect on how they even got here. How much public money was spent on them, the restaurants who made them ad hoc to start, and what kind of streets serve your neighborhood best. And we want to hear from you. What do you think of streeteries in your neighborhoods, or the lack of them? Shoot us an email at dc.citycast.fm with your thoughts. That's all for today here on CityCast DC. Share this episode with a friend over an alfresco breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Maybe it's at a streetery. We'll be back tomorrow morning with even more news from around the city. See ya!